Welcome, everyone. I'm Coach Nesci with Shooting School Basketball, and you are listening to Meet Your College Hoops Coach. We chat with college coaches to give you an inside view into the college and their basketball programs. Today, we are happy to have with us Coach Bob Hurley, the head coach at Stevens Tech in Hoboken, New Jersey. Coach has just completed his 12th season as the head coach. The previous 5 seasons, he was the assistant at Stevens. Right as we speak, Coach has just come off a tremendous year. Stevens Tech finished 23-5 and a second-round appearance in the NCAA tournament. Coach, good morning and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Coach.
My pleasure. Coach, if you can you give us a kind of overview of Stevens Tech?
Sure. Stevens, we are located in Hoboken, New Jersey. We have a urban park-like campus. We sit directly on the Hudson River, directly across New York City. So we have some really good views of New York City. If you've never been to Hoboken or our campus, I strongly encourage you to come to our campus. I know you've been a couple times, Coach. We've competed a few times, but we have terrific views in New York City. We are a math and science school. I think many people know us for our engineering, but we also have a College of Arts and Letters for humanities. We have a School of Business. So we're more than just engineering, but very math science related. We have 3,600 undergrads as well as 3,600 graduate students. So we've grown quite a bit over the last 10 to 15 years. I think when I started, we maybe had 1,400 undergrads. So we've grown quite a bit in the last 10 to 15 years. Small campus. I always explain to people, I think we have the best of both worlds because we have a nice small campus, located in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is, I believe, a top 3 college town. But we also have great access to New York City, being able to hop on the PATH train, a bus, or the ferry to get to New York City in 15 minutes, just gives our students a lot of opportunities, that are outside of what Stevens offers. If you have interest in the arts, you can experience New York City arts, sports teams. There's just so much around us that our location, lends to our students. That's just outside what Stevens, offers them.
Yeah, Coach, as regards to the campus and obviously on-campus students, do you have a population of commuter students as well?
I don't believe it would be that many. I'm sure that it's a small portion. As far as like housing, we do have on-campus housing. Now that our student population has grown, we don't actually have enough beds on campus to accommodate all of those students. Excuse me, Stevens has leased a lot of the luxury apartment buildings in Hoboken and passed those leases on to our students, as well as the fraternity sorority houses. And we also have students that get apartments on their own. So there's a lot of options for housing. We're actually in the middle of a construction project to build 2 new towers and a university center, which should be completed next school year. So we're excited about that. I think that adds maybe 900 or close to 1,000 new beds on campus. So we're excited about that construction. It'll be a nice site on our campus once that's completed.
Yeah, I know just what you mean. I echo the area, Coach. I mean, Hoboken is a great place, and I'm sure it's got to be up there as a destination as regards to being a great college town. Coach, what would you say and regarding recruiting? Like, what is unique, I guess, about Stevens Tech in comparison to the schools in your conference when you're recruiting?
Well, one's always the location. I think the location always sets us apart from a lot of different schools. Just having that access to New York City, just puts us in a different mindset, I guess, or than our other schools that we compete against. The second's probably the academic offerings. the science, the technology, the engineering, the math, the STEM fields.
Hmm.
There's just not a lot of schools like us that are focusing on those, academic majors. So, I think that's what really sets us apart from, just the schools in our conference, but also a lot of schools, in the area, just based on our academic offerings.
And Coach, can you talk to us a little bit about your conference?
Sure, we are now in the MAC Freedom. Prior to that, we were in the Empire 8, which was all upstate New York schools for about 12, 13 years maybe. So this
Yeah.
past year was our first year in the MAC Freedom.
Hmm.
And I have a little smile on my face just because the travel was much different than the Empire 8. Our bus trips to St. John Fisher and Nazareth and Rochester were 5-6 hours, and we had to make that trip a couple times a year. And our farthest trip in the MAC is 2.5 hours. So our travel was cut down immensely this year, and I think it just added just a quality of life to our student athletes, to our coaches. Just not having the extra 6 to 8 hours on a bus during a
Sure.
weekend. So we we enjoy the MAC just because of the travel. But it's also, good colleges and universities we're competing against. We have good coaches in our league. And it was just exciting this year because we had more fans at our road games. Not a lot of our families can make trips to Rochester every weekend, and, but they can make a trip to Misericordia, in Dallas, Pennsylvania, or FDU Florham, here in New Jersey. And, we experienced some of that in our conference tournament this year. Playing FDU Florham in the semis, our gym was packed. They're 20 minutes away, which was nice to kind of have that that playoff atmosphere.
Sure.
And I think that's going to just build, being so close and closer to a lot of our opponents. Things we didn't have in the Empire 8.
Yeah, I know what you mean regarding the length of some of the bus trips. In my tenure at NYU, we kind of had a rule that we were able to follow. Again, fiscal restraints plays a part in it, but we were fortunate, Coach, where we would, for the most part, not have to take bus trips if we wouldn't in the league if they were over 5 hours.
Right.
So even like for us in our conference with the University of Rochester, we would fly to Rochester. Now we've busted and it's not terrible, but otherwise, the longest bus trips we had really were between Chicago and St. Louis, which were like just about 5. And then, our bus trip to Brandeis at 4 hours. But you certainly had, a number of those trips that would be 5+ possibly, right?
Yeah, when you go into Alfred and Houghton and Fisher Naz, and it takes a toll on you. I think it's fine if it's maybe once a year,
right?
But we had to make it numerous time, and then if one of those teams was hosting the conference tournament, we had to bus back up, and we had a meeting with our team the other night, and they were talking about like, why were we up in Houghton, New York, 3 days before a game, but we had to leave early because a big snowstorm was coming in. So,
right.
There was just a lot of, a lot of variables that went into it, and, traveling that far, there's a lot, it's a big toll on the coaches. It's a big toll on the student athletes, so the less travel, I think, is better for everybody.
Yeah. And, Coach, I guess I didn't realize you guys were in the Empire 8 conference, and it was already 12 years, because I know prior to that you guys were, I believe, in the Skyline.
Yes.
Somebody needs to check. I think you guys might have the record for being like in the most conferences in a like a 25 year period, because I didn't realize it was 12 exactly. And when I saw that you guys were making that shift over to the MAC, it made sense to me too, as regards to just figuring the distance part of it. And lo and behold, I guess your first year in, you have such a tremendous season. I don't know how happy the other coaches were with with having you in on that aspect. I'm sure
Right.
on all others, to have Stevens as part of their league is a big plus. So that's I'm happy for you guys, and was excited to kind of follow your success over the course of the season. Coach, with your recruiting, and you've been doing it a long time now at the same program, so knowing what is required, I think what is required to be successful in our recruiting when you have as long a tenure as you have. And again, I can speak from experience, having a long tenure, that you really know the kind of the specifics of your institution and what is going to work as regards to the type of student athlete you recruit, as regards to how they're going to fit into not just the basketball system you employ, but also the community at large. Can you talk about that, Coach, as regards to your recruitment and what you're looking for? I guess not, first like the intangibles and what kind of student athlete you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're looking for students that can fit the profile of Stevens, to get in admissions wise, and that they have the interests in the academic offerings, we have. So that's kind of first and foremost. Obviously, we're looking for the most talented basketball players that fit that mold. Recruiting is a challenge, as you know, and each year seems to be different than the next. One time you think you figured it out, and next year is totally different. So it's a challenge year to year. Based on admission standards, based on financial aid. There's so many things that go into it. But really, we're trying to find the most talented basketball players we can get, and then we just kind of figure out what's best for us to do basketball wise based on our personnel. That we've had years where we've been small, and I think we faced you one of those years where we were averaging 90 points a game, just because we weren't a great defensive team because we didn't have the personnel to guard, but we had guys that wanted to shoot threes, so we kind of sped it up. This past year we were a little. Coach,
I can interrupt you. You said you had guys who wanted to shoot threes. They all want to shoot threes, Coach. The difference was your guys could make them. You can make them. Sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
No, but each year is different. We've had some teams with some bigger bodies, and we would focus more inside. I think for us, we're always looking for length at every position. If we can get bigger at every position along the board, we have a pretty good chance of being competitive, because we spend a lot of time on the defensive end, and, as length and size really help you, defensively. And Stevens, I think, attracts a hardworking student. So that translates over to the basketball side. All of our kids are great kids, and they work really hard. Just because that's kind of the culture we have. Like academically, you can't come in and just go to college. You have to work at it a little bit with the type of majors we have, and that translates to the court, and they're ready to work, and it kind of just helps us develop players because they want to get better. So yeah, we're really just trying to find the best fit, the students to the school, and obviously the best basketball players, and then we'll kind of develop our style around that.
Yeah, Coach, is there a more common major, or what would be like for your team? What do you find is the most popular majors?
We are probably split, our team, with half engineers, half business students. On the engineering side, I would say mechanical and civil are probably the most popular majors. We've on the business side, it's business and technology or finance. But we have them all across the whole board. So we've obviously got a lot more business students over the last 10 years since that program began. And when I began, in 2003, when they were developing the program, that was one major. Now I believe there's 7 or 8 in the business program. So we've grown, and again, our location really helps us out because we're tapped into all those major corporations across the river in New York City, and it's helped us grow our school, and it's helped athletics, as well.
So during the season, Coach, I was doing some research and just reading on other parts of your program besides just your record, and I see how so many of your student athletes have really achieved in the classroom, and certainly that's always an impressive thing, and coming from my experience at NYU and how important that is to us. I was really, really, I was really taken by what I saw as regards to the accomplishments in the classroom of your student athletes. What, Coach, can you say about the challenges that you face in assisting your players with balancing their academic schedule and their athletic basketball responsibilities during the season?
To be honest, they're really good at that. And you can probably attest to that. Just the type of kids that we get, they can handle a lot. And I think they have so many multiple interests that they're able to manage their basketball, manage their academics, be involved in fraternities, be involved in different things. It's just the type of kids, that we attract at Stevens. And, I'm not really that concerned with them managing it. They do such a great job, handling. I mean, our team GPA the last 5-6 years has been a 3.5. So our kids do really well in the classroom. I think on our side. So
basically, Coach, they take after their coach. Right? That's
what I just try to stay out of their way and and just give them encouragement.
That's what I would say, Coach. I would say
they are really smart. But I think on our side of it, I think we've done a better job over the last few years of not overloading them with basketball. I think now, you're spending more time on the rest, the recovery. 10, 12 years ago, we were going 6 days a week, and on weekends we're practicing 3 hours. That's kind of changed a little bit these last few years. I don't know if we had a 3-hour practice this past year. And now we look at the practice schedule, and it's okay. We don't really want to go 6 days in a row. Let's go 3 days, 1 day off. Let's go 4 days, 1 day off, and just helps them, have a day off, and they can focus on their academics, or just get a day where they don't have to worry about basketball. And at the end of the day, we're worrying about basketball games, and I'm worried about the offense and the defense, and you sometimes forget that they're worried about calculus and physics. And machine dynamics, and a lot of these classes that are way over my head, in addition to what we're doing offensively and defensively. So, you kind of have to take a step back and be like, wow, they have a lot on their plate. We can scale back a little bit, on the basketball side of it.
Yeah, that's a great point you made, Coach. I think that, from my perspective, now that you've become, you look back in 12 years, I remember when you first started out as head coach, but now you really are a seasoned veteran. And, I know from my vantage point, I know how I kind of oversaw the basketball program change dramatically from when I started to, as I continue to go through the years. I thought I learned a lot, and I think you become, I guess, a little more cerebral and always trying to, come up with a better plan, to prepare your student athletes for the overall picture, right? And that sounds like, you're finding it. I also felt, Coach, that our younger players would follow the older guys. So when you had a good group of veteran players that were good students with good study habits, our younger players, would model what they saw from them. So and I know you had 5 seniors like this year, and I'm sure that goes into it as well. Regarding Coach, you're talking about practice. I'm curious, do you have a set time during the week that you practice, or do you have to work it around like their class schedules, and it may change day to day?
Yeah, it changes day to day. I'm actually sitting down with our women's coach and volleyball coach next week to do our practice schedule. And, I got my fingers crossed that it'll work out really well. But, when you're balancing gym time with 2 other sports and, class schedules are all over the map, it gets difficult. We've done a pretty good job of balancing around their academic schedules, to get the best practice schedule we can figure out. But even if a guy misses a practice for a class, he'll get in and get an individual workout during the day. And, we'll make it work. And it gets difficult as even they get, up to their junior and senior year, because now you have some of your students who are taking a grad class, and that only meets, at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday night. And you're like, okay, well, now we have to work around that. And, but we're lucky our kids find a way to get extra shots in. And, it's just the challenge of, the type of school we are. And,
Right.
That's why I think the weekend practice, especially in the first semester, are so valuable, because we know
Absolutely.
we'll have our whole team, on a Tuesday or Thursday, you might lose 3 or 4 guys. So, yeah, it's a challenge, but, we make do just like every other, school does.
That's great. So, Coach, then as you go through the season, and this year obviously is not the norm, but what would a normal off season be like for you and your players?
For our players, they're securing internships or co-ops. That it's kind of the culture at Stevens is to start working on your resume, right after your freshman or sophomore year. So, a lot of our guys have internships, and they're looking to build their resume and get experience, and be able to kind of figure out what they want to do, once they graduate. Do I want to work for a big company? Do I want to work for a small company? So a lot of our guys are doing internships. For the coaches, a lot of the off season is recruiting, whether it's off campus, on campus. And, at the Division III level, there's so many events you can attend, and it starts in April, and there's some in May, and you've got the Ivy and Patriots in June. And then a lot of the live events in July. And then before you know it, you're back on campus in August and trying to get prospective student athletes on campus, to see what you offer. So a lot of the off season for us is recruiting, but also it's preparing for October 15th once we officially start. And, we've already started it now. We know what we're losing with our seniors, now figuring out what our younger guys, how they can fill those shoes, or what will be different. Because each year, as you know, is different, from the next. So, you like we've had a good group of seniors, and I think they've, done a good job of building up these young guys that haven't played. So we're excited to move forward. And now that we don't have the recruiting, I think, us coaches are spending more time thinking about what we're going to do next year to prepare our team.
Yeah. And Coach, with a number of very, very successful seasons that you've had in your tenure, could you speak to us about maybe one season that might stand out a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, we've had a lot of good ones. I was an assistant when we got to the Sweet 16 in 2007, and Anthony Pasalaco was part of that team. So remember those days well.
Yeah.
The 2013 team, we got to the NCAA tournament, and even some ECAC appearances and tournaments, around then, which I think we competed against you guys a little bit in one of those years.
Yes.
But most recently would be this past year. We were 23-5, finished first in the MAC Freedom, after the regular season, able to host, the semis and the finals of the conference tournament. And I think what makes this year special is it was our first ever conference championship. So we've been to the tournament before, but that was Pool C bids and at-large, appearances. But winning the conference championship is just the history we hadn't made up until this point. So that was big for our group this year, is winning that first conference championship. I mean, be able to host an NCAA tournament game on your home floor and have the crowd there. Our crowds down the stretch were tremendous. And that's what's exciting. I think it makes it really fun for the student athletes having, big crowds to support them. We had a good group. We had, like I said, 5 seniors who, had experienced a lot. When you think about their 4 years, as freshmen, they lost in the conference championship to St. John Fisher. As sophomores, we were up 2 with 3 seconds to go. We lose at the buzzer in the semis of our conference tournament. As juniors, our leader and leading scorer, Spencer Cook, goes down with a season-ending injury 2 games into the season. So we had to adjust and play a different style that year. And, we lost in the semis of our conference tournament. So they'd experienced all that, 3 years prior. So we knew that, they've seen enough and were talented enough if we could fit the pieces together that we were going to have a good year. And, I think that's what makes it special from start to finish, and it helps when you have such a great group of seniors to lead you.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned before, Coach, style of play and how you feel that as coaches, and I agree, I don't just say this, but I agree that you have to kind of adapt to your strengths. And, in Division III at higher academic institutions like Stevens Tech, like an NYU, we were always looking to get the best basketball players and then, make the system fit your talent. So what was your system like this year, Coach?
You know what? We probably picked the NYU days. We ran a little Princeton action.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Did you really,
we
Coach?
ran loading the point, and ran some chin stuff. So yeah, we ran some Princeton stuff. We felt in the past, looking back over the years, we've done some dribble drive,
Yes.
which a lot of the teams that we competed against with you, where we had good guys that could handle the ball and kind of create for others, and we had good shooters at that point. And we looked at it the last couple of years, and maybe our personnel had changed. It was like, maybe we should shift away from this. We just didn't feel that we were getting our guys in position for quality shots, and, we still had some good shooters, but it just, their feet weren't set, or something about what we were doing. We weren't putting them in the best position possible. So, we spent a lot of time. We were actually going to do it the year prior. And then watching our guys in summer league, they were playing like we've always played, and it looked good. And it's like, all right, well, let's not, mess it up, or, when you'd have to change an offense or something, it takes a lot of work and time.
Yes.
And we don't have at our level a lot of time, to be running new offenses from year to year. So we scrapped it that year. And then this year we're like, all right, we're going to Canada. So we were doing our preseason tour. So we were going to start 10 practices early. So getting that additional 10 practices, we're like, this is the time where we can add in a new offense, and it shouldn't affect the timeline of our season. So, we went with it. And, I don't know if we're quite there yet of getting all the shots and stuff we want, but it just put us in different, positions. We were able to post some of our guards, we're getting good side ball screens. And I think it just gave our guys, even on the weak side, your feet are set when we would drive and kick. So it just gave us a different look. And I think moving forward, we're excited to build on what we had this year.
Yeah, that sounds exciting, Coach. I didn't know that. I'm going to have to check out some of those games.
Yeah, our offense is still a work in progress. We spent a lot of time on defense this year. So
yeah. Well, the one thing I remember, and when we put that offense in, and I ran it 3 different times during my years at NYU, but groups of years, a few years based on the personnel. But I always remember, when I first implemented it, learning about it as much as I needed to, go to the Princeton practices, and I was so taken with not their offense. I mean, the offensive execution was excellent, but after attending a number of practices, I asked Coach Carmody, like, he was nice enough to meet with me after practices for a few days. And I said, Coach, I said, I noticed I come to a few of the practices, but you didn't do any like defensive part of the practice. Is that something you do at different times? He goes, well, only for scouts, only when we have scouts, because if you can guard our stuff, you can guard anything. And you know what? To some degree, if you run it really well, It's kind of true. It's kind of true. But Coach, this has been terrific. I think that the information that you provided about yourself and your program, Stevens Tech is a tremendous institution with a great basketball program. I know that there's going to be a lot of young men who are going to continue to look at Stevens as a top option for them, and I certainly wish you luck as you wrap up your recruiting this year, and hope to run into you, Coach, in the near future.
Yes, thanks for having me, Coach. And little different, I guess, areas will bump into each other on the recruiting trail now. So
yes,
looking forward to it.
Same here, Coach. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Coach. Take care.